Picture this. 47 different alien species, all crammed into their fancy environmental pods aboard the galaxy's biggest space station, and they're all watching the same nightmare unfold on their screens. Station Concordia isn't just any old space station. This thing is massive, like the size of a small moon, built specifically for moments like this when the entire galactic assembly needs to meet face-to-face. Well, as face-to-face as you can get when half the delegates breathe methane, and the other half live underwater. The Devourers are back. Yeah, those Devourers, the ancient machine race that supposedly went extinct millions of years ago. Every species in the galaxy grew up hearing horror stories about them, the kind of bedtime tales that made little alien kids check under their sleeping pods twice before going to sleep. Turns out, they weren't extinct at all. They were just taking a really long nap out in the void between galaxies, and now they're awake, hungry, and eating entire star systems like cosmic popcorn. The holographic display in the center of the assembly hall shows the carnage in real time, and it's absolutely terrifying. These aren't just ships we're talking about. These are machines the size of moons, each one capable of stripping a planet down to its core in a matter of hours. They move through space like a plague of mechanical locusts, leaving nothing but empty vacuum where thriving solar systems used to be. The worst part? They're not just destroying everything. They're learning from it, adapting, getting stronger with every world they consume. Admiral Veltar from the Crystal Empire is practically having a breakdown in his crystalline pod, his insect-like mandibles clicking so fast it sounds like machine gun fire. The guy's been a military commander for over 2 centuries, fought in dozens of conflicts, but you can see the terror in his compound eyes as he watches the tactical displays. His translator keeps glitching because he's speaking too fast, switching between 3 different languages as he tries to process what he's seeing. The gas cloud aliens, the ethereal collective, are usually these calm, zen-like beings who speak in riddles and act like they've achieved some higher state of consciousness. Right now, though, they're swirling around in their atmospheric chambers like tornadoes. Their usually peaceful blue glows shifting to panic reds and oranges. When beings who transcended physical form start freaking out, you know things are bad. Even the big tough lizard warriors from the Saurian Empire, who usually won't shut up about their glorious battle honors and their unbreakable warrior code, are sitting there in stunned silence. These are 7-foot-tall reptiles with natural armor plating and enough muscle to bench press a small vehicle, and they look like they're about to cry. Their war chief, General Thrak, keeps opening his mouth to say something, then closing it again when the numbers on display update with fresh casualty reports. The aquatic species are huddled in their water-filled spheres, their bioluminescent patterns flashing in rapid sequences that their translators can't even keep up with. The silicon-based constructors, usually methodical and logical to a fault, are making these low-humming sounds that apparently pass for panic in their species. Even the energy beings who normally act superior to everyone else because they don't have physical bodies are flickering like broken light bulbs. The math is brutal and simple, displayed in cold, hard numbers that update every few minutes as fresh reports come in from the outer rim. 12 systems already gone, not just defeated, but completely consumed. Every planet stripped down to raw materials. Every star drained of energy. The Devourers aren't even slowing down. If anything, they're accelerating each system they consume, making them stronger, faster, more efficient. The Assembly's greatest minds, representing thousands of years of collective scientific advancement, have been running calculations non-stop. Every simulation shows the same result. At their current rate of advancement, factoring their increasing efficiency and the defensive capabilities of the remaining systems, the Devourers will reach the core worlds, the heart of galactic civilization, in exactly 6 weeks, 2 days, and 14 hours. That's when every living thing in the galaxy dies. Not defeated, not enslaved, not conquered, completely erased. The Devourers don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. They just consume everything organic and move on, leaving behind empty space where billions of years of evolution used to exist. It's extinction on a scale that makes planetary disasters look like minor inconveniences. The silence in the assembly hall is deafening, broken only by the soft hum of life support systems and the occasional nervous click or whistle from various species. 47 civilizations, representing trillions of beings across thousands of worlds, all staring at the same impossible numbers and reaching the same terrifying conclusion. They're all going to die, and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. So here's where it gets interesting, and by interesting, I mean absolutely infuriating if you're human. These aliens spend hours, literal hours, just talking in circles about why they can't fight back, and every excuse is more ridiculous than the last. You gotta understand, we're talking about the fate of every living thing in the galaxy, and these species are acting like they're debating what to have for lunch. The Avian Collective, these beautiful bird people with feathers that shimmer like oil rainbows, stand up first in their atmospheric chambers. Their spokesperson, a creature that looks like a cross between a peacock and an angel, speaks through their translator in this melodic voice that would be soothing if the words weren't so mind-bogglingly stupid. We have evolved beyond the primitive concept of warfare. They announce, preening their feathers like they're accepting some kind of award. Our species achieved enlightenment 3,000 years ago when we abandoned all forms of violence. To engage in combat would be to betray everything we have become, right? Because apparently being enlightened means letting everyone else die while you maintain your moral superiority. The human delegation, all 12 of us sitting in our tiny corner, exchange looks that could melt steel. But it gets worse. The Aquatic Federation jumps in next, their fish-like representatives floating in massive water-filled spheres that take up half the assembly floor. Our physiology simply cannot sustain extended operations in the vacuum of space, their leader explains, his gills fluttering nervously. Our ships require constant water circulation, and our soldiers can only survive in hard vacuum for limited periods. The logistics alone make any meaningful military contribution impossible. Okay, fine, they're fish. But then the crystalline hegemony chimes in with their excuse. And these guys have been the galaxy's premier military force for centuries. Admiral Veltar's mandibles are still clicking nervously as he projects his holographic image larger, so everyone can see him. While the hegemony has always stood ready to defend galactic civilization, he says, our analysis shows that conventional military tactics are useless against devourer technology. They've had millions of years to perfect their weapons. Our fleets would be obliterated before we could even engage. The silicon-based constructors, who build most of the galaxy's infrastructure and should theoretically be great at, constructing a defense, offer their own pathetic excuse. These rock people, who look like walking mountains, speak in unison to their shared consciousness. Our reproductive cycles span centuries. Each individual represents thousands of years of accumulated knowledge and experience. To risk our lives in what preliminary calculations suggest is a meaningless gesture will be an act of species suicide. And that's when it really starts getting ridiculous. Every species starts piling on with their own reasons why they can't possibly help. The energy beings claim they're too pure to engage in physical conflict. The hive minds say they need unanimous consent from trillions of individuals. The plant-based symbiosis argues they're rooted to their home worlds and can't travel. The gaseous entities insist they're too fragile for combat operations. It goes on, delegate after delegate standing up to explain why their particular species is uniquely unsuited for defending their own existence. Some claim their religion forbids violence. Others say their government structure makes military decisions impossible. The telepathic collective even argues that the psychic trauma of combat would damage their mental networks permanently. Meanwhile, the tactical displays keep updating with fresh horror. Another system gone. Then another. The Devourers aren't waiting for the Galactic Assembly to figure out their feelings. They're just eating everything in their path like a cosmic lawnmower. That's when the Assembly's quantum supercomputers finish their analysis. These aren't ordinary computers. We're talking about machines built from crystallized mathematics, powered by miniature black holes, and capable of processing more data in a second than human civilization has generated in its entire history. When they speak, reality itself seems to pay attention. The result flashes across every screen in the assembly hall. 0.3% probability of successful resistance against devourer forces, assuming maximum cooperation from all 47 species and perfect tactical execution. Even with every ship, every weapon, every soldier in the galaxy working in perfect harmony, they've got less than a 1% chance of survival. And you know what happens when these mighty galactic civilizations see those numbers? They give up, just like that. the most aggressive species, the ones who built their entire cultures around warfare and honor. Look at those odds and decide extinction is preferable to trying. The bird people start talking about achieving transcendence through death. The fish folk begin composing what they call extinction elegies. Even the warrior lizards start discussing how to die with dignity. The human section gets quieter and quieter as this cosmic pity party continues. Ambassador Beth Wilson, sitting in her simple plastic chair, because humans apparently don't rate fancy environmental pods, watches 47 species of advanced aliens essentially vote to roll over and die rather than fight impossible odds. That's when she stands up, just stands up in her plain gray diplomatic uniform, and the entire station goes dead silent. 47 species, thousands of delegates, all talking stops at once. My species would like permission to handle this ourselves. She says, calm as you please, like she's asking to borrow someone's pen. The silence that follows could have powered a small star. The reaction is instant chaos, and I mean absolute pandemonium. You got to picture this scene. Thousands of alien delegates in this massive assembly hall, and they all just heard a human, representing a species that most of them consider barely above primitive, volunteer to single-handedly fight an enemy that has them all ready to write their cosmic wills. Some aliens are gasping, but not the way humans gasp. The crystalline beings make the sound like glass breaking in reverse, while the Aquatic Federation starts blowing bubbles so fast their water spheres look like they're boiling. The energy beings are flickering between colors so rapidly it's giving everyone headaches, and the plant symbiosis starts releasing pollen clouds in what I'm assuming is their version of nervous laughter. The gaseous entities begin swirling around like tornadoes, their atmospheric chambers fogging up completely. The insectoid collective starts this rapid clicking sound that builds into what sounds like 1,000 typewriters going off at once. Even the usually stoic silicon constructors are making these deep rumbling sounds that vibrate through the station's hull, like geological formations having an anxiety attack. But Admiral Veltar's reaction is the best, or worst, depending on how you look at it. This guy, who's been a military commander for over 2 centuries and has probably seen every kind of crisis a galaxy has to offer, actually starts making this sound that can only be described as hysteria. It's like a cross between a tea kettle whistling and someone trying to laugh while choking on their drink, all filtered through an alien throat that wasn't designed for those kind of sounds. Ambassador Wilson, he says through his translator, and you can hear the system struggling to process whatever emotional state he's in. He's trying so hard to be diplomatic that his voice comes out strained, like he's talking to a child who just announced they're going to fight a dragon with a plastic sword. With respect to your species' many contributions to the assembly, humanity feels perhaps 3,000 vessels across your entire space navy. The Devourers consume star systems for breakfast. This isn't about courage or honor. It's simply mathematical impossibility. The numbers flash up on the main display again, just to drive home his point. Human fleet strength: 2,847 active vessels, ranging from tiny patrol ships to the handful of proper battlecruisers. Devourer fleet strength: estimated at over 50,000 world killer-class machines, each one capable of cracking planets like walnuts. It's not even a fair fight. It's not even a fight at all. It's like watching an ant challenge a steamroller. But Beth Wilson, and this is where it gets really interesting, doesn't even blink at those numbers. She's already pulling out her personal communicator, this little device that looks absolutely primitive compared to the fancy holographic interfaces everyone else is using. While the aliens are still processing their shock, she's typing in some kind of coded message, her fingers flying over the simple keypad like she's done this 1,000 times before. While she waits for a response from Earth, she starts talking, and the entire assembly gradually goes quiet because nobody can quite believe what they're hearing. She begins with a simple question: how many of your species have visited Earth? A few hands go up. Well, whatever passes for hands among the various alien species. Maybe a dozen out of thousands of delegates have actually been to humanity's homeworld, and most of those were quick diplomatic visits to the orbital stations. Nobody actually goes down to the surface, unless they absolutely have to. That's what I thought. Beth says with this little smile that somehow manages to be both friendly and terrifying. Let me tell you about our home planet, about how literally everything on Earth tries to kill you on a daily basis. She starts with the weather, explaining how Earth has these things called hurricanes, spinning storms bigger than most space stations that can level entire cities. She mentions tornadoes, which are basically miniature hurricanes that touch down and erase everything in their path. Then there's lightning, which is essentially natural artillery fire that happens during rainstorms, because apparently Earth's atmosphere decided that regular rain wasn't dangerous enough. Our ancestors, she continues, while our communicator starts beeping with responses from home, survived ice ages that covered half the planet in glaciers thicker than most starships. They lived through volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years at a time. They dealt with floods, droughts, earthquakes, and something we call winter, which is basically our planet trying to freeze everything to death for several months every year. The alien delegates are starting to look uncomfortable, shifting in their environmental pods, as Beth describes what sounds to them like a hostile planet that nobody should be able to survive on. But she's just getting started. She talks about Earth's animals, predators that evolved specifically to hunt humans, from big cats that can leap 30 feet and crush skulls with their jaws, to tiny insects that carry diseases capable of wiping out entire populations. She mentions something called Australia, which apparently is just an entire continent where evolution went completely insane and decided to make everything venomous. The plants try to kill us too, she adds casually, like this is perfectly normal. We have trees that drop coconuts like natural artillery, flowers that can put you into a coma if you smell them wrong, and something called poison ivy that makes your skin burn just from touching it. Admiral Veltar's mandibles have stopped clicking. The energy beings have stabilized into confused, swirling patterns. Even the hive minds seem to be struggling to process this information through their shared consciousness. My species learned to survive, Beth says, checking her communicator as more messages pour in from Earth, by being too stubborn to die, even when the universe really, really wanted us to. 18 hours later, the first human fleet shows up, and let me tell you, it's not what anyone expected. The alien delegates are all crowded around the observation decks of Station Concordia, expecting to see humanity's secret weapon, some kind of super advanced technology that they've been hiding, maybe ships built from exotic matter or powered by pocket dimensions. Instead, what jumps out of hyperspace looks like it was built in someone's garage. Our ships aren't pretty, and they sure don't have the sleek curves or the fancy exotic materials that scream advanced galactic civilization. The ethereal collective's vessels look like flowing works of art, all smooth lines and crystalline surfaces that bend light in impossible ways. The Aquatic Federation flies these organic-looking ships that seem to swim through space. Even the militant Saurian Empire has these imposing dreadnoughts covered in decorative armor, plating, and ceremonial weapon arrays. Human ships look like what they are, tools built by a species that learned warfare from predators on a planet that considered natural selection a full-contact sport. They're boxy, angular, covered in armor plating that's been welded on as an afterthought. You can see the docking clamps, the external fuel lines, the backup systems bolted to the outside because there wasn't room inside. They look like flying toolboxes, not warships. Admiral Veltar is practically having another breakdown as he watches the human fleet take formation. This is what they're bringing? He keeps muttering through his translator. These primitive constructions against machines that harvested stars when my species was still learning to make fire. The Crystal Empire's own ships are these beautiful geometric formations that look like living mathematics. And here come the humans in what essentially amount to armored cargo haulers. But there's something about the way they move that makes even the most skeptical alien step back from the viewing ports. Human ships don't glide gracefully through space like everyone else's. They move with purpose, like hungry predators that have spotted prey. Every maneuver is efficient, direct, with no wasted motion. Where other species' fleets form elegant battle formations that look great in tactical displays, the human ships cluster together like a pack of wolves. Captain Tom Bradley, commanding the lead vessel, a beat-up-looking cruiser called Persistent, gets on the open communication channels, and his message is so simple it's terrifying. All assembly forces maintain defensive positions around core worlds. Humanity is advancing to engage the enemy. Not we'll try our best, or we'll attempt to slow them down. Just we're advancing. Like the outcome isn't even a question. The alien fleets, Thousands of beautiful, advanced warships representing the finest military technology in the galaxy actually start pulling back. Not because they're cowards, but because something about that simple statement makes every tactical computer in the assembly start flashing warning signals. The Crystalline Hegemony's AI systems are calculating human fleet strength and probable outcomes, and the results don't make sense. How can 2,847 primitive vessels speak with such confidence against an enemy that has them all terrified? What happened next wasn't some glorious space opera battle with dramatic music and heroic speeches. It wasn't the kind of elegant combat you see in galactic cinema, with ships dancing around each other firing beautiful energy beams. It was something much more terrifying. Humans doing what humans do best when faced with impossible odds. The Devourers meet the human fleet at the edge of the galaxy, in a region of space where 3 star systems used to exist before being consumed. These aren't just ships we're talking about. They're artificial moons covered in weapon systems that have been perfected over millions of years. Each Devourer construct is the size of a small city, bristling with technology so advanced it might as well be magic. The first exchange of fire goes exactly as every alien computer predicted. Human weapons barely scratch the Devourer armor, while their return fire starts vaporizing human ships immediately. Any sane species would retreat, regroup, maybe try some desperate diplomatic solution. Humans just keep coming. When their main weapons fail to penetrate Devourer shields, they switch to kinetic rounds, essentially firing chunks of metal at relativistic speeds. When those don't work, they start ramming. Not suicide charges, but calculated impact designed to damage critical systems. The Devourers have shields that can absorb energy weapons and defenses against every form of advanced warfare, but apparently nobody in their millions of years of experience had prepared them for enemies who treat their own ships as expendable ammunition. When human vessels take critical damage, instead of retreating or surrendering, pilots eject in escape pods just long enough to lock their ship's navigation systems onto Devourer weak points and turn them into guided missiles. The aliens watching from their safe position see ship after ship making these final runs, ramming into gaps in Devourer armor, exploiting every weakness with the kind of precision that only comes from accepting that survival isn't guaranteed. The Devourers, ancient and experienced in galactic warfare, had encountered every type of military strategy the galaxy had to offer. They'd fought energy beings who could become pure plasma, hive minds that attacked with perfect coordination, and warrior species that valued honor above life itself. But they'd never encountered a species that treated extinction-level threats like a minor inconvenience, something to be solved through sheer bloody-minded persistence and an apparently infinite willingness to try things that shouldn't work. When the last Devourer's ship went dark, something incredible happened that nobody in the galaxy was prepared for. Its final transmission, broadcast across every frequency and picked up by monitoring stations throughout known space, was basically mechanical confusion translated into mathematics. Picture this: an artificial intelligence that had existed for millions of years, that had conquered entire galactic civilizations, that had perfected the art of warfare down to a precise science, suddenly encountering something that broke all its calculations. The transmission was analyzed by the Assembly's best cryptographers and AI specialists, and what they found was fascinating. The Devourers had been trying to categorize human military tactics, to fit them into their vast databases of combat strategies accumulated over eons of conquest. But every time they thought they understood what humans were doing, we'd do something completely different that made no logical sense. Their combat algorithms kept expecting humans to retreat when facing overwhelming odds, to surrender when victory became mathematically impossible, to at least try to preserve their forces for some kind of strategic withdrawal. Instead, humans just kept coming, wave after wave, adapting on the fly, turning every defeat into a learning experience and every loss into motivation for the next attack. The ancient AIs literally could not process encountering a species that solved impossible problems by just keeping going until something broke. Their final desperate calculations were trying to figure out what humans were optimizing for, what ultimate strategy we were pursuing. The answer, which apparently fried their circuits, was that we weren't optimizing for anything except not giving up. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity turned mathematical impossibility into what basically amounted to Tuesday afternoon. Monitoring stations across 47 different star systems have been tracking the battle, expecting to witness the final extinction of organic life. And instead they watch humans methodically dismantle an enemy that had terrified the galaxy for millions of years. The crystalline hegemony's military analysts are still trying to write reports about what they witnessed, but their computers keep crashing because the tactical data doesn't fit any known combat doctrine. The ethereal collective, who pride themselves on understanding the deeper patterns of existence, have gone completely quiet because human behavior apparently transcends their philosophical frameworks. Even the silicon constructors, who build their entire society on logical problem-solving, have requested copies of human military manuals to try to understand how we approach the impossible. Back at Station Concordia, the assembly reconvened in emergency session, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of panic and despair, there was this weird mixture of awe, confusion, and what could only be described as shell shock. These were species that had convinced themselves extinction was preferable to fighting overwhelming odds, and they'd just watched the galaxy's youngest civilization treat those same odds like a minor scheduling conflict. Ambassador Beth Wilson walked back to the podium, and this time, thousands of alien delegates hung on her every word. The human section was still tiny compared to everyone else's massive delegations, but somehow it didn't feel small anymore. When she started to speak, you could hear a pin drop in the massive assembly hall. About that 0.3% probability your computers calculated, she said with a slight smile that somehow managed to be both friendly and absolutely terrifying. You forgot to account for one variable in your equations. She pauses here, looking out at all these advanced species who had essentially voted to roll over and die rather than face difficult odds. Admiral Veltar's mandibles have stopped clicking. The energy beings have stabilized into attentive, swirling patterns. Even the usually chattering insectoid collective has gone completely silent. Humans are really, really bad at knowing when to quit, she continues, and somehow this simple statement hits like a thunderbolt. See, you all ran your simulations assuming rational actors making optimal decisions based on available data, but humans aren't rational actors. We're the species that looked at every predator, every natural disaster, every impossible challenge our planet threw at us and said, yeah, but what if we just don't die? The implications of what she's saying start sinking in across the assembly. These aliens had spent centuries building civilizations based on logic, efficiency, and calculated risk assessment. They created beautiful, advanced societies by making smart choices and avoiding unnecessary dangers. And they just watched a species that apparently doesn't understand the concept of unnecessary danger solve their extinction-level problem through pure stubborn persistence. Your computers couldn't factor in human stupidity, Beth Wilson says, and there's definitely some pride in her voice now. They couldn't calculate for a species that treats mathematically impossible as a personal challenge rather than a reason to give up. The silence that follows the statement stretches for what feels like hours. 47 species, representing trillions of beings across thousands of worlds, trying to process the fact that their survival had depended on humanity's fundamental inability to recognize when something can't be done. And that's how the galaxy learned that sometimes the best response to impossible odds isn't complex strategy or advanced technology or perfect mathematical analysis. Sometimes the best response is to look at certain extinction and decide that maybe, just maybe, you'll take one step forward instead of back and see what happens next. The universe, as it turns out, has a weird sense of humor about these things.